I remember during the pandemic, the first year of the pandemic, I had my original script for La Borinqueña #3, and I decided to revisit it and push forward into actually publishing that book. And I realized that the ending, which was written before the pandemic, was too dark for the reality of our lives right now. So I had a conversation with my two sons, and I told them, I'm going to change the ending of this book, and I want to use this as an opportunity to introduce a new superhero team for La Borinqueña. Can you both help me develop these characters? My youngest son, Ennio, who's now 7, told me, I think that the team should be almost all women, because every superhero team out there is almost all guys with like one woman as kind of like the lone woman, like Wonder Woman or Black Widow. So I took that into consideration, and then I also saw organically what was already happening in the books. An important element of the storytelling of La Borinqueña is that she is a college student, and she's engaging with her peers who are also students in La UPI, the University of Puerto Rico. And understanding the colonial history of Puerto Rico, you have to also learn that college students for generations have been the critical thinkers that have led social justice movements in Puerto Rico. As recent as 2019 to as far back of the 1950s when Pedro Albizu Campos was the leader of the Nationalist Party, students have always been that cadre. And there's a reason for that. Many college students don't actually learn about their pre-colonial Puerto Rican history until they're actual college students. For the most part, Puerto Ricanos in public schools are learning about Susan B. Anthony, not Mariana Bracetti. George Washington, not Emeterio Betances. They're learning this history for the first time, so there's a significant awakening that happens. So as a storyteller, I saw that as an incredible fertile ground that I could draw characters from. And characters that initially she had conflicts with. Conflicts based on colorism, conflicts based on regionalism, conflicts that eventually were resolved and gave ground for friendships. And I thought that was the most ideal way for her to create her team. Understanding Taino history, I learned about the Ni Tainos. The Ni Tainos were the nobles that protected the caciques, and the caciques were women and men, the chieftains of their communities. But these noble warriors were the ones that made sure that their communities and their chieftains were always protected. So in understanding that, since I created a character that is rooted in Taino mysticism, I thought to myself, that would be the perfect name for her team, the Ni Tainos. And although she is from Brooklyn and her best friend is from Washington Heights, her best friend is Dominican and Chinese, but her best friend also represents a very important demographic in Puerto Rico. My hometown of Santurce has a very large Dominican population now, as our other parts. And many Dominicans have this dual identity in Puerto Rico. They still have a connection to the Dominican heritage, but they have a connection to their Puerto Rican heritage. One of these artists that I'm familiar with have taught me this. Our DJs like Velcro, for example. This opportunity to understand the diversity of young people in Puerto Rico gave me the opportunity to create this team so that the students who are all STEAM students, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, would be natural candidates to become superheroes. And I've always enjoyed the narrative where superheroes come from people who organically develop these powers. They don't just literally land on our planet from another planet that exploded, or they're not bestowed these powers because they're nepo babies. You know, they're bestowed these powers because they've earned them and they've lived in an environment that has produced this. And it may be a trope when you look at how in so many science fiction stories, there's always this nefarious corporation that has experimented on people, but it's a reality in Puerto Rico. La Operación, a project that sterilized women, and so many other projects that have been involved in cancer research, which led to the decimation of many, many, many Puerto Ricanos. it's a real place to draw a narrative from to create these characters. So what may be a trope for other genres or books, for us is just, of course, it's part of our natural identity. And out of that came this growth of these superheroes. They're her peers, they're all her college peers as well. So the founder is La Borinqueña herself. The second member of the team is Lala Leu, who's her Chinese-Dominican best friend, who now lives in Puerto Rico with her. She goes by the name of Luz. She has the abilities and strength that draw from bioluminescent energy. She can literally charge up her body into light energy, create bioluminescent force fields around herself. Another character that we created is Iguaca. She has tech wings, but she has a natural ability to communicate with Iguacas, who are the indigenous parrots of Puerto Rico, also known as the Amazons. Brismal is our mecha. She is actually the pilot of Vejigante. That was a fun character to create because many people automatically assume that a mecha would be piloted by a man. And the mecha has this kind of like androgynous body, because we're not gonna add hips and curves to a mecha, because I think personally that looks ridiculous. But the mecha is inspired by this current wave of love of Japanese manga and anime in Puerto Rico and amongst Gen Z and millennials. And I've always seen this connection between the folkloric cultural masks of the Vejigantes and the mechas. Like, I grew up with the Shogun warriors with these elaborate horned helmets, these giant robots, and I see that, so we created a mecha for Brismal. The last character is Oro, El Coqui Dorado. Oro is actually our first spin-off. Oro is the first character to get his first solo issue, aside from La Borinqueña, in this universe they created. Oro was also co-created by my 7-year-old son. We have a Vejigante mask that was gifted to us from Corporación Piñones Se Integra, COPI, an organization in Piñones, Loíza, in Puerto Rico that is dedicated to environmental justice. And this Vejigante mask is literally carved out of a coconut husk, painted yellow, and has 3 horns, just like Oro does. So Ennio created this costume design for a character, but he didn't have a name for it. So we co-created this idea of Oro El Coqui Dorado, and he's a character that's associated with the indigenous tree frog of Puerto Rico, the coqui. And he has the ability to shrink down to the size of a frog, but he also has superhuman agility and abilities. And a lot of the superheroes are connected to magic. So there's science, but there's also magic. I recall many years ago, Professor Nicholas Blicky at Columbia University became part of this e-group that he created for me, which allowed me to ask professors questions to discuss the viability of what could be science or what could be magic. And a lot of times, Nicholas would say, that's magic, put that in the magic category. So I don't have to, in a nerdy way, try to over-explain things scientifically. I'll go, you know what? He can shrink because it's magic. I don't need to create my own version of pin particles. I have Taino magic. And those are the Nitainos. And they're getting their own action figure line this fall, thanks to Boss Fight Studios, a highly articulated line of action figures for collectors like me. So we're all excited about getting these action figures in our hands. And it's exciting that, 7 years into this publication, we're still receiving attention, we're still able to raise money, we're still able to introduce new readers to our work. La Borinqueña #1, which was published in 2016, is still our best-selling book. Thanks to groups like the Penn Faulkner Foundation in Washington, D.C., children are actually studying about Puerto Rico because Penn Faulkner buys our books and distributes them to public schools across the D.C. area. And many other nonprofits are following that model as well, because La Borinqueña, as a graphic novel series, is the only one that exists that can introduce young people to Puerto Rico in a way that is not intimidating. The book's bilingual. We have the technology now with our smartphones that we could scan something and it'll translate it for us immediately. And it's an opportunity to introduce to Latinx students across the United States a hero that looks like them, that sounds like them, and eats like them. She loves sancocho, and who doesn't? So the next project, Oro is already getting an incredible response, and the book hasn't even been published, and the excitement and the pre-order sales are doing incredibly well. And we've decided that the next project we're going to do is another spin-off, and that's going to be Luz La Luminosa, Lala Leu. So we're going to be giving a Dominican their first superhero book. So the first Dominican superhero is actually going to be published this year with her own publication, and she is it's also part of La Borinqueña universe. She debuted in the first issue of La Borinqueña, and this character is also going to do something different because it's going to tackle a disease that affects women. One in 9 women in across the United States, for example, statistically have reported to have endometriosis. So we're bringing this issue into our work as well, because aside from the work we do with La Borinqueña, we're very well involved in raising awareness around endometriosis, because my wife and partner, Edgardo Miranda, as well as our ally and good friend, Rosario Dawson, as well as millions of other women, suffer from endometriosis. So we're gonna bring this issue into our book as well. So the next project is gonna be Luz #1. We're thinking about possibly having it for the fall, for the New York Comic Con. There's a documentary that my wife is involved in. She's one of the featured subjects in the film, and that is actually gonna debut on the 21st of June, on my birthday, nationally on PBS. We were thinking about originally releasing it around that time, but now we were just recently, literally today, 2 doctors from Puerto Rico reached out to us, and they were like, we wanna bring Below the Belt, which is the name of the film, we wanna bring it to Puerto Rico for private screening. So we may change the release date of Luz, because we wanna kinda use the book to kinda connect our activism in Puerto Rico to our activism with women's health issues as well. Being an independently published graphic novel series, the opportunities that we've been afforded and have come upon are incredible. Even the support that we've received from US institutions like the Smithsonian. Our book is actually part of the permanent collection of the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. They just recently opened the Molina Family Latino Gallery. And in the back of the gallery, they have a children's library, and all of our graphic novels are actually in the children's library. And that just blows me away that our small studio is able to create work that finds itself alongside historical artifacts. And it connects to the fact that we definitely, as a publication, dabble with historical fiction, and that is definitely a point of inspiration for us. And it's always an opportunity to, well, like we say in Spanish, to kind of drop a little indirecta, kind of like a little Easter egg there, kind of like a subliminal message. And again, we will do a name drop, right? And a name drop is there for you to say, wait, is that a real person they're mentioning, or is that an actual fictional person? And we did a lot of name drops in issue #3 to give people kind of an opportunity to do a deep dive themselves. And I think that is what I've learned from pop culture. I've always appreciated when there are name drops or references, because then as someone who consumes pop culture, it would inspire me to do my own research and to look into other things beyond the source material that's presented to me. Like, what is their source material to create the songs and the movies and the books that I'm reading, Our action figures are going to be released this fall. In October, we're looking at having the release of our first wave of La Borinqueña's action figure, which include La Borinqueña, Luz, Oro el Coqui Dorado, and our first supervillain, La Gárgola. And our books are all available on our website, www.la-borinquena.com. We keep it independent so that we get 100% of the sales to continue to do our philanthropic work. And also, when you visit our website, it's an opportunity to learn about the organizations that we're supporting. And we believe in transparency. So if one of these nonprofits speak to you, we encourage people to reach out. Their contact information is there. You can plan a visit, or you could even do your own direct support of the work that they're already doing in Puerto Rico.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out more io9 videos here on YouTube.